Okay, good morning. This is the time and place for the planning hearing meeting for April 18th, 2018. My name is Vilija Zamataitis, and I am the planning hearing officer for today's hearing. We have one case on the agenda, and relevant exhibits are posted on the board directly behind me. Okay. Today's case involves a variance. And under the provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30.43 of the Glendale Municipal Code, a variance can only be granted if all four required findings are made. If evidence presented in the application and at the hearing meets those criteria, then I would be able to either approve or impose conditions for the approval of the case in question. If the findings, in fact, cannot be made, then the request has to be denied. In terms of a public notice, notification of this hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices that were mailed to all property owners and occupants within a 500-foot radius. The subject site was properly posted, and the notice was also placed in a local newspaper. The hearing will proceed as follows. I will read the description of the application request. I will then also summarize any reports received from other city departments and other letters or communications. The case planner, Kathy Duarte, will then make a brief presentation of the case, give analysis, and make a recommendation. The applicant will then be asked to come forward, stating both name and address, and will be asked to present the case within a 15-minute time limit. And others in support of or in opposition to the project and any other interested parties will then be asked to come forward to speak, and you will have 3 minutes. And lastly, the applicant will be given the opportunity for a rebuttal if desired, and the rebuttal time is 5 minutes. The hearing will then be closed and the case taken under submission. After the hearing, the decision will be prepared in writing and will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all those persons who responded to the public notice, either by speaking today or by submitting written responses. The date of the decision will be the date on the letter. Under the appeals, all appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the date of the decision. And if you wish to speak, please write your name and your address on one of the speaker cards provided by the front door and submit it to staff. I would also like to inform everyone that the official proceedings of the planning hearing officer hearing are recorded and are being videotaped live right now and are available on the city's website afterwards. Okay, with that said, going to today's case is variance case number PVAR 1722701 and also administrative exception case number PAE 1722704. The project site is located at 521 Nolan Avenue. The applicant is Rodney Kahn of Kahn Consulting. Project description is obviously these are applications for a variance and administrative exception to allow the construction of a new 2,486 square foot single family house and attached two-car garage on an 8,790 square foot vacant hillside lot. And this would be to construct the house without providing the required minimum street front setback and driveway length, and with uncovered stairs projecting into the front setback greater than what is permitted, and also to exceed the maximum 32-foot building height allowed in the R1R restricted residential zone, floor area district 2. A legal description for this property is that it be a portion of lot 70, track number 4881. And in terms of environmental review, this project is exempt from CEQA as a Class 1 existing facilities exemption. So with that, in terms of interdepartmental staff comments, I believe there's comments submitted from our urban forester regarding the one protected tree on site, and that tree is located at the bottom. This is a through lot, and so it's located at the bottom, and this tree will be maintained. So other than requiring the identification of that tree, but since it's outside the drip line, there are no other significant comments. No no significant comments other than standard conditions were received by the Glendale Water and Power. And it appears that there are no other interdepartmental comments. Is that correct? Okay. With that, I'd like to turn the meeting over to the case planner, Kathy Duarte, for a presentation.
Thank you. I think you covered most everything. In terms of in terms of the request, the applicant is this on? You can hear?
I can't.
I think it's on though.
There it is.
They're requesting a 5-foot street front setback, a 6-foot 1 3/4 inch driveway length, where an 18-foot driveway length is required, uncovered stairs in the street front setback for a length of 11 feet. And regarding the height, they are requesting a height of 36 feet where 32 feet is permitted. As noted, the property is a vacant 8,790 square foot irregularly shaped lot, 3-lot. It has frontages on Nolan Avenue and Valentine Drive and gains access from Nolan. It is a very steep lot with an average current slope of 84.5%, and it pretty much drops off immediately from Nolan Avenue. As noted, the zone is R1R, which is the restricted residential zone, and it's floor area ratio District 2, which is a low-density residential zone. In terms of the findings, staff could make the required findings and recommends approval of the variance and administrative exception applications with conditions. I think if everything is in the staff report, if the findings, no? She's like, that was my presentation, if you have any questions.
Okay, so staff's recommendation then is to approve the project with conditions, is that correct? And I have read over the staff report, and you do include recommended findings and conditions. And I'm looking at the applicant then, Rodney, have you received the staff report and you've read over the draft findings as well as the conditions of approval, both for the variance and for the administrative exception?
Yes, I have.
All right, so
If
with
I
that.
could just note, I think on some of the findings or conditions of approval were left off on one of the, there should have been 10 for each, and I think there were 7 on one of them. Just so you know, there should be 10 conditions for each. That would be the same. No, unless I had a bad copy.
Okay. But with that
Okay.
said, I'm going to yes, if you don't mind, yes, I would like to call the applicant up
Sure.
to the podium, Mr. Rodney Kahn.
Great.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Good morning, Ms. Mataitis, city staff, and neighbors. My name is Rodney Kahn. My offices are located at 1111 North Brand Boulevard, Suite 403, here in the city of Glendale. And before I begin my presentation, just to clarify what was said, I just want to make sure I ask the question on the record. If the 7, you mentioned the 10 conditions, if I look through my staff report, I see that for the variance, there was only listed 7 conditions. And then for the administrative exception, there is listed 10 conditions. So those 10 should apply for the variance as well.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page then. Once again, what I'd like to do is just take a few minutes and talk about the project itself and then the reason that we're here today. As pointed out by Ms. Duarte, this is a through lot. It's a beautiful hillside neighborhood. We have frontage both on Nolan Avenue and on Valentine Drive. The access is actually off of Nolan Avenue. And if you've had an opportunity to go out there, you know that this site is very steep. As pointed out, it was, I think, 84 to 85% in slope and steepness. It's one of the lots that does not have a house on it. Many of the other lots in the immediate area do have houses on it and also are on steep lots as well. The house size that we are proposing is 2,486 square feet. We think it fits in well with the neighborhood in terms of the square footage wise. The average size house in the area is about 2,900 square feet. So it's about 500 square feet less than what the overall average is for that area. The architect has laid out the project where you have a street level. That's where the garage and the entry is. You have the first or lower level, which is the living area, and then the lowest level, which is the sleeping area, where the bedrooms, etc. are as well. The goal of the house design, and the reason we're here today, was to limit the visual impact, the massing of the building on the site. So as you know, when you have a steep lot, a downhill lot, the further that the building gets pushed out, the more massive it becomes on that hillside. So working with design staff, working with our architect or designer, the solution was to try to pull that house in closer to the street so that the mass, the overall scale of the project is reduced down, especially as you're looking at it from Valentine and some of the other streets. You can look up at that hillside, and some of those existing houses you can see are very large. And that's a little bit different. This you will see. It's not that it isn't visible on the hillside. It's just less massive by pulling it closer to the street as opposed to further away. The other thing that it benefits us is it also minimizes the grading that would need to take place. So we have a very limited amount of grading that's going to take place, and that's mainly to get the piles in for the structure. And also, obviously, you'd have a little bit more natural open space or hillside vegetation by not having the building pushed further out as well. The staff, as was called out in the staff report, there's some various analysis that was done. And as you go through the required findings and you look at the findings, the variance findings, so the exceptional circumstances, the lot configuration is just slightly different, a little different than some of the lots in the immediate area. The lot is a little narrower at the bottom of the hillside and a little wider at the top, which is a little different than some of the other hillside lots. You also have a little bit different slopes and angles on the hillsides. It's not as if every house or every lot on that hillside is uniform or consistent. It has varying slopes and also has varying vegetation as well. I mentioned about the impacts or what we're proposing to do. We thought that through different variations of design that we were looking at, by pulling that in, and we at first tried to push it out, but you could really see that there'd be a series of retaining walls that would be required for us to kind of backfill and stay within the height confines and also provide a driveway or a setback that got further pushed back. But it's also a little inconsistent with some of the other structures in the area. Some of them have a setback that's a little closer, but most of them are pushed back as well. But it all varies, and what we were trying to do is keep kind of a consistent street edge, which is to have that building pulled up, not all the way right on the property line, but pushed back some, that's the 5 feet, to be able to kind of reduce the mass and kind of be consistent with that street edge along Nolan Avenue. The open space that's been provided, the different maintaining the oak tree, we're not impacting the vegetation on the hillside in terms of the protected tree. It's kind of I think it's a scrub oak. We're not near it. We would maintain it. We'd keep it. And in fact, any of the trees that we're looking at from the adjacent properties as well, we would obviously not be impacting their trees. We would be maintaining a certain screen around those trees. And we also have some very clear configuration as it relates to, as we progress and go through plan check, as we have analysis done from the city in terms of the plan check itself, our intent is not to impact or remove their trees in any manner. I did want to touch briefly also on the administrative exception. Once again, the height of the building, it has to do with really a couple things. One is I mentioned about pulling the house closer to the street. But by doing so, you also end up with some height variation. And there's different ways of addressing that height variation, and we wanted to do it as the least impactful. I mentioned that we could build a series of retaining walls along that hillside and backfill them and meet the letter of the code. And we wouldn't be asking for that. But then you'd be looking at that hillside with a bunch of retaining walls. So we wanted to avoid that. The second thing is the design of the house. As you know, and was mentioned to me, the design of the house has not been approved, and that's not what we're here for today. The architectural design needs to go to the design review board. They'll analyze it. They'll determine if it's the appropriate style, the appropriate treatment of materials, etc. What we're looking at is just trying to stay within the confines of kind of this is our overall project. The height, I asked if there was what the floor to ceiling height was, because if it was large or tall, could we reduce that down? And I'll give you the dimensions. This is clear ceiling height, so when I walk in from the floor to the ceiling, for the garage level, which is also the lobby level, it'll be about 8 feet, which is not a tall structure at all. For the mid area, it'll be 9 feet. And for the lower sleeping area, it'll be 8'6". So it's not as if they're large or tall ceilings that we could somehow then reduce down. We're pretty close to being what's at a comfortable level between 8 to 9 feet for the overall structure. And that's clear space. I did review the conditions of approval that were called out in both the applications, and as clarified, there are 10 of them. We would comply with all of them. In particular, any of the other city departments, they didn't comment or they didn't have exceptional or significant comments. Obviously, we'd be in full compliance and go through plan check for them as well. I'll conclude my remarks. I know there's some speakers, and if there's questions, either from yourself or them, I would be happy to answer them. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. This might be a question for you, or it might be a question for staff. I actually went out to the project site, walked it, took a look at the surrounding neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
There are a number of homes on Nolan that were actually built also much closer to the property line than what code would require today, which would be the 15-foot setback for the house and an 18-foot setback for the garage.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there are a number of variances that were approved as well. So I confirmed it because we pulled the records for those variances for the other properties on Nolan. So in comparison, it looks like the property would be consistent with the existing development pattern along that street. The question with regards to the stairs at the front, okay? So the stairs, are those required by the building code to gain access to the rear deck?
Yes. So the stairs, as you can see them, they're coming in off of.
Do you mind coming up to the
Sure.
to the board as well?
So the stairs, as we enter, you'll see the stairs that lead down into. Let me get myself oriented here. Here's Nolan. Here's the entry. Here's the garage. So this is the street level. So we have stairs that are required by building code for the access. We've taken those stairs. They're leading in this direction, and it provides us the access. As you see, it picks up down here. It provides us access into this area as well, off of the deck. And in fact, previous iterations had larger decks and had larger areas and other stairs as well. Since they were not required, we eliminated those. So that's what those stairs are for.
Now, the second floor deck that you're referring to off of the middle, essentially the middle story, what would be the living room and the dining room and the kitchen, that deck sits upon the lower floor with the bedrooms.
That's correct.
And so it doesn't cantilever out onto the hillside below.
No, it does not cantilever out, and in fact, even these areas, we had larger decks here before those were removed down. You're correct.
Okay. So, unlike other hillside developments which try to maximize their open space by providing a deck and additional retaining walls at the rear, this house is pretty much compact in terms of its open space. Atop other levels, except for the two smaller balconies on the lower floor that are cantilevered out.
That's correct, Ms. Zematitis. It is now.
It is now.
It is now. Previously, in different iterations of the design, because there was no, because it's a hillside site and we were trying to create more usable space, but that ended up adding more mass to the building. Okay. So we eliminated those. Yes, you're correct.
Okay. So, and that's as a recommended condition.
Yes.
If the project is approved as presented, it will not be changing as it proceeds through the process and going to the design review board to become some sort of larger deck in the future.
Ms. Zematitis, no. The thing that would be changing, if anything, as you know, would be the architectural style or color or materials. It's not whether the deck changes in size or scale.
Okay. So, but again, going back to the driveway and the setback at the front, which appears to be somewhat consistent with the development pattern. Mm-hmm. Typically driveways are meant to be deeper in order to park a car off the street, not within the garage. In this particular area, because of the hillside location, it appears that there's only parking on one side, one or the other. Mm-hmm. I'm going to look towards the neighbors that are in the audience to make sure that I have this correct. When I drove out there, it appears that there's parking not on both sides of the street, but only on one side of the street. Yes, exactly. Okay, so and it appears, however, also because of the reduced number of homes on Nolan, that there really isn't a parking problem per se, that everyone is utilizing their garages. It's not like the hillside street is impacted by additional cars or whatnot. So there is the ability to park off-site.
My experience going up there a number of times and enjoying their area was, as I'm winding up there, I make sure I'm going at a fairly slow pace. Mm-hmm. I'm not going quick, but I didn't have any problem finding a parking space, and I did see people parking on both sides. So maybe it's just you orient your car so you don't block people. I'm not really sure, but obviously the neighbors can speak to that.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have 3 speaker cards. Oh, I have 4 speaker cards now. Okay. Thank you. I would like to call up Michael Foster. Michael Foster first, please.
Thank you, Ms. Zematitis. I am Michael Foster. I live at 531 Nolan Avenue. And I guess my concern would be on the conditions of approval number 10. I spoke with some of my other neighbors, and they told us the last time there was a construction in our neighborhood in that area, they had issues with flat tires from the nails, things like that. So I guess my thing is here, it says that if any building, sidewalks, curb gutter, fencing, landscape areas adjacent to the site are damaged, does that count for when they're putting in the caissons? If, it's shaking the house and something breaks, or, if they're leaving nails and bolts and things like that on the drive, on the street, if we have punctured tires or something's damaged, we can come in and they're going to take care of all this? Is that how it works?
That unfortunately is not under our purview. I believe that the applicant is taking notations, and that the site will be posted in terms of who the contractor is, and you would be able to contact them with regards to any damages that happen from the construction.
Okay.
So.
Okay. That was the tree issue has been cleared up for me, and I just want to make sure that when they start construction, if they're shaking and things are actually being damaged in our home or our tires, that someone's going to pick up the tab other than us. I guess that's what I'm asking.
We will make note that all the property owners in the adjacent area are able to contact the contractor
Okay.
if there are any issues. So,
That
but
would not
unfortunately, we would not be able to enforce that. I believe it would be more of a civil matter
Okay.
and not under our purview.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. I have the next speaker would be Connor Cochran.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Connor Corcoran. I'm an attorney from Philadelphia, and my wife and I have the house at 515 Nolan Avenue, which would be directly north of this proposed project. I'm here to submit my general objection to the project because the owner of the property has been, shall we say, less than proactive about providing us with advanced information in advance of these hearings so that this process could be a little more smooth. My general objection concerns the extent to which the property extends out over the hillside, because much of that property will be very close to the southern end of my house, where we have decking that we are replacing right now, and that we generally have a view towards Griffith Park and the rear end of the Hollywood sign. I'm glad to hear that the design elements of the project will be reviewed at a later date. Of course, I'd love to see the place be architecturally appropriate, but I'm not quite sure what that means in Southern California anymore. Not that it ever meant anything. But for example, as I see these plans here for the first time, directly behind your head in the middle square, it appears that the middle level deck does in fact cantilever out over the hillside. I have questions about that kind of thing. I don't have any kind, none of the neighbors have received any kind of perspective drawings as to how this is going to affect what the neighborhood looks like. In that regard, I've been authorized by Ani Vartabetian at 510 Nolan Avenue, who has a concern about the height of the house and the variance for, I believe, a requested 4 feet. She has concerns about the extent to which that's going to affect her view, and frankly, I share those concerns as well. I can't emphasize enough that I am happy to work with the owner and certainly with Mr. Khan on this project, which will inevitably be built to some extent, but we do want to be consulted proactively to make sure that this works, and to minimize the bureaucratic process, because it's a long way from Philadelphia for this kind of thing. And that's pretty much it. I have a list of specific concerns. I don't know whether I should put them on the record now or not.
You're more than welcome to. I know that you have a 3-minute
I have a 3-minute
period,
limit.
so
Okay. Well,
you're
then
your last.
my concerns are as follows. The steps leading from the lobby level down to the second level, I have concerns about what they look like and how close they will come to my property line. There isn't much information has been provided heretofore concerning what the house is going to look like in terms of its 5-foot proximity from the curb. Again, I have concerns about the extent to which the structure extends over the lot and blocking the neighbor's views. And I think I've covered everything else. So thank you for your time.
Few questions for you.
Please.
Okay. So do you reside on the property? I take it you don't reside there permanently, that you are bi-coastal?
My permanent residence is in Philadelphia. My wife's a physician at Kaiser Permanente. She wanted the house. And if the mountain won't come to Muhammad, Muhammad flies across the country twice a month. For the love of God. In fact, I'm going to LAX right after this hearing.
Okay.
So to answer your question, I suppose I am a bi-coastal person.
Well, no, I apologize, because I'm just, in relation to your everyday life on Nolan in terms of the parking situation in terms of off-street parking, in terms of the development patterns, okay? So,
Okay, well, as far as, I don't have any concerns about the repercussions of this project on parking on the street.
okay.
None whatsoever.
Do you have any concerns regarding its proximity to the front property line?
Of course.
And the requested variance?
Of course.
Okay, now you realize though, if they don't get this variance, that the house is actually going to be put, if they were to meet today's code, the house would actually be pushed further over the hillside and probably.
And that would be counteractive to my concerns. I
I'm just,
understand that. But we haven't seen any, this is the first time
Okay.
I've seen these plans in legible, even remotely legible form.
And how did you receive notification regarding this project?
I got, well, they bought the property a number of years ago.
Oh, I guess, how did you receive notification of
Got-
this hearing?
I got a notice for the April 4th hearing.
Okay.
I showed up for the April 4th hearing. Mr. Khan did speak to me the day before to let me know that it would be canceled. But I don't know him from Adam. So I came on April 4th and just to make sure. And at that time, I was notified by one of the staff members that it would be continued to this date.
Okay.
I didn't actually get any notice or any paperwork in the mail concerning this date.
Okay, because the notice, all of the notices that go out actually have a link to the online website that includes the staff report and the plans. So I just
I
want to make
understand
sure that
that.
you're getting the notices with those links because we want to make sure that the process is
No, I did not get the notice with any links. What I did eventually dig it up, but I'm here to tell you that on a human level,
right.
understanding these plans is impossible on
Okay.
a computer screen. It's much easier if the owner and the owner's
Right.
agent is proactive about showing us this stuff, and that just hasn't happened heretofore.
Okay.
That would be nice.
It would be nice. Yeah, I understood. And typically, when it comes to design review, when they get to the design review stage, or if this was a code compliant project and it didn't require the planning hearing officer, sometimes the applicants meet with the property owners, but the city itself has to follow the legal proceedings for public notice and
Sure.
the notice. I just want to urge everyone, if you're watching on TV or if you're in the audience, that those notifications that go out in the paper or that are received, on site, they always have a link. And those staff reports that are posted online are always available with the plans. And then also we urge people to contact the case planner if you have any further questions. So we just want to make sure that all the information is available for public review at any time. So
I'm here to tell you that no matter how well you notice and publicize that
Yeah.
link, you cannot understand these plans
Okay.
on a computer screen. There's
Okay.
no way.
And
I do historic preservation work back in Philadelphia.
okay.
I know the routine here. You got to take a look at the plans, and this is the first time we're seeing it.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. No, fair enough.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Thank you. The next speaker is Harand Shabazi.
Good morning. My name is Haran Shabazi, longtime resident of Glendale. I live in Glendale for 30 years at 1815 Verdugo Vista Drive, Glendale. And I own the property at 519 Valentine Drive for over 30 years. And in 1991, I had a permit to build on the property, and I let it expire because of the recession. And after that, because of the city council and hillside ordinance was designed to make sure nothing will be built in the hillside. So I'm very glad that the city is approving this project. So I'm all for this project. And I wish they could increase the height another foot so it could have better ceiling height for a custom home. So I don't mind the height variance and also the setback in the front. Because in the hillside, I have designed many homes, and it's impossible, to meet all the requirements of the hillside ordinance in order to build a house. So the way the hillside ordinance is approved, so that people, they won't build in their homes. So the only way to build it is to apply for a variance. So I totally agree with the variances, including the setback in the front and also the height. And also I'm aware of all the variances that there is in Nolan Street. I have a big file for all the variances in that area. There is so many variances that it was approved 2 feet, 3 feet, 5 feet setback from the street. So this variance, it just matches the rest of the variances they had. And that's all I have to say. So I'm all for the project.
Okay, thank you. And are you a current resident of the neighborhood?
Well, I live at 1815 Verdugo Vista Drive, which is north of Glendale College. but I own that property for 30 years, since 1988.
Okay, so you were the previous property owner.
No, I'm still the owner of that property vacant lot. My house is in Verdugo Vista Drive, but I own the property vacant lot.
You own the vacant lot that's to the north?
509 Valentine, so that'll be,
Oh, so okay, so you own one of the vacant lots that are on the street below?
yeah, there's one street on Valentine Drive on the west side. I'm next to that house, property next to that house on Valentine Drive.
Okay. So-
And my lot is a true lot from the Valentine Drive to the street below.
So currently you have a through lot on Valentine Drive?
Yes, I do.
That is vacant?
Yes, last 30 years. And I've been cleaning the brushes, paying taxes, and every time I'm watching the city council just disapproving all these variances for no reason. And like I said, the ordinance says hillside ordinance is designed to preclude the people from building in the hillsides. That was the only reason in the 90s when they had the city council, was against development. So that's why they came up with the hillside ordinance. So make sure the people, they won't build in those lots. And again, it's impossible. I have designed many buildings. It's impossible to design a building 2,200 or 3,000 square feet without getting any variances. So I'm totally, for the variance.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. The last speaker card is for Ani Vardabedian.
Hi, so I'm Ani Vartabetian. I live on 510 Nolan. So my main concern is the height of the building. 2 years ago, I spent 1.3 million. I bought the house, and I spent another over 200 because of the view. So the height is going to obstruct my view. I have over 180 degrees of the city view, and the 4 feet is going to obstruct the view of the Burbank and the San Fernando Valley. Last year I paid about over $1,000 just to cut a tree because it was obstructing part of my view, but then this one is much of a big problem, and that's the reason why I'm here.
Okay, thank you. The city of Glendale does not have a view protection ordinance, so view protection would not be under the purview, neither of the planning hearing officer or the design review.
But the height, the standard, it's
The
over
height standard, yes. Okay.
correct?
Would you mind pointing out which is your house? Are you directly across the street from?
510 Nolan would be like across, approximately.
coming
I
up?
don't understand the maps.
Maybe that one.
I don't really understand the maps exactly. If you show me the street, I'm not an architect.
So if this is Nolan right here and this is Valentine,
So my house is on this side.
so it's a
Right
recent
next to it.
sale? Okay.
Yes, 2 years ago.
So you're a little bit further over. Okay. Okay. So, and your objection then is to the height, to the additional height.
Correct.
Okay. So. All right. Do you have any additional comments that you would like to make?
That's my main concern.
Okay. Thank you. I believe the applicant now has a 5-minute rebuttal period.
Once again, Rodney Kahn. In terms of what I heard, I'll address. The first speaker, as it relates to the caisson and the nails, there's the contractor that will have information to be able to be contacted. There's also the building department that if there's issues, could be reached out to, and a building inspector can come out, verify, and at least document and inform the contractor. Excuse me. So hopefully that would address any concerns, and then obviously the owner of the property would be responsible if there's damages or if there's any other types of issues. The gentleman that spoke about reaching out, I think there's always a better opportunity to reach out to people and to be able to sit down with them and show them plans. That certainly, as this project progresses, could be done. As I mentioned before, there is a design review board hearing that will take place, And there's also, as we move forward, opportunities to contact me. We did speak briefly. I did forward a link to him for the plans, but as the gentleman said, maybe it was difficult to see those plans on the scale on the computer screen. The last speaker, as it relates to the height of the building, you mentioned there's not view protection ordinance. Being across the street, if you look at our first floor, our ceiling is, as I mentioned before, is very low. It's not a tall building, especially from the street level. The height, and this is something that's kind of different, but if the architectural style of the building was different and we had a roof pitch, we wouldn't need a variance because we're allowed to get the additional height if you have the 3 and 12 roof pitch. We don't. We have a flat roof. So realistically, there is some flexibility that the code allows for, which increases the height if your roof was pitched as opposed to flat. So we felt with this style, and once again, the Design Review Board will look at the style, that's where the fluctuation in height takes place. But as I mentioned as part of my original comments, our ceiling heights are fairly low to begin with. And I think those are the remarks that I heard that we would address. But once again, I think it's a site that this house is well designed for or well developed for. I think there's some minor adjustments that could be made to address the issues, but overall, I think that the project is a well thought out, well designed house. That will conclude my remarks. If you have further questions, I'll answer them. If not, we ask for your approval. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Could I just mention one thing for the neighbors? Before the project goes to the Design Review Board meeting, we require that story poles be installed at the site, so which would give you a rough idea of the massing and height, you know, before it goes to the Design Review Board meeting. It's not scheduled yet. It would depend on the outcome of this meeting, whether or not it could even proceed. So. Yeah, and you will receive notification posted at the site, mailed within 500 feet for that meeting. Generally you would receive.
And
it depends on.
And I'm sorry, we can't have cross communication with that at the microphone, so it's under legal. Yeah, if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and answer those questions and just after the hearings, just because those are sort of procedural to the Design Review Board.
Right.
But
I
yes,
just wanted to know them to know they will receive additional notice, and the site would be story poles would be constructed at the site if it's moving forward.
so, and it probably would not be within the next month or two.
No,
So just
more
to
like-
let you know.
More
All right, if that helps, it.
more like 3 to 6 months probably.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so. Okay, with that said, I'm going to review, again, the application, all the background research, today's testimony as well, and make a decision within the next week or two. Very much appreciate everyone for coming out and being part of the public process, especially all the way from Philadelphia. And with that said, matters taken under submission, and decision will be rendered shortly. Thank you again for coming. The case is closed, and the hearing is closed.